Today, we become legends.
Today's Titan Talk went over the full OB9 patch notes as well as some very interesting Q&A and other stuff coming to the game soon. I won't be covering the full patch notes in this video, only the things that we haven't seen previously just to not extend the video length beyond where it needs to be. So if you want to check out all the balance changes, Guan Yu, Kali's aspect, and the rest of the stuff coming in the patch that we've already seen earlier this week, you can check out my previous OB9 showcase videos on the channel, or I'll link the full patch notes in the description down below if you're interested. But without further ado, let's jump into today's Titan Talk recap. So first up, the new stuff from the OB9 notes that we hadn't seen before. The announcer packs are coming to the game in OB9, which we did know before, but here's the full list of all the ones that are coming in the first wave as seen on the PTS. They will be adding more waves of these classic packs at some point, but these are just the ones in the initial wave. They also extended the time that the chat window will stay open after a message or VGS in this patch, which is really nice. God page Pantheon backgrounds are also starting to make their way into the game with OB9. The Egyptian one is the only one for this update, but they said to keep an eye out for future backgrounds coming in the next updates. Definitely adds a little bit of the personality back that was lost in the move from Smite 1 to Smite 2, which is a great change in my opinion. There's going to be a ranked soft reset in OB9 as well, which we did know was coming, but here's the actual numbers for it, which we hadn't seen until now. Anyone above 4000 SR will be reset to 4000, aka Obsidian 2. Anyone between 3400 and 4000 will be reset to 3400, aka Diamond 2. Anyone between 2800 and 3400 will be reset to 2800, aka Platinum 2, and anyone below 2800 will have no reset whatsoever. They're also adjusting the SR formula a little bit to have less aggressive adjustments at the very start of a ranked player's career to limit SR inflation and boosting, as well as making the variance in SR gain less extreme, so you should now gain and lose a more consistent amount of SR per game. Ranked rewards were also talked about already, but just in case you missed it, the rewards go out next patch and will count your current winter split rank. You get a ranked border displaying your highest achieved rank. This is granted to anyone above silver and will automatically update if you achieve a higher rank at any point in this whole season. There will also be titles for deity and demigod players, as well as the ranked speedrunner title for the first 10 players who reach demigod in the winter split. There's been some small VFX adjustments to Achilles, Bellona, Athena, and Medusa in this patch as well, so that should hopefully look nice. But that's all of the new stuff in the patch notes that we didn't know about before. Again, if you're interested in the rest of the stuff coming in this patch, I have videos covering it all already up on the channel if you want to check those out, or I'll link the full notes down below for you to go over. But let's move into the Q&A section for today's Titan Talk. First up, someone asked when they'll add a favorite or randomized feature for things like music and announcer packs, and Kilgoon said they would like to do it and it wouldn't be super hard to do, but it's not a high priority right now compared to a lot of other UI related features that would have a larger impact on the core game and are more worth investing time into. Someone asked about Berserker Shield not proccing repeatedly while under 60% health, and they said that this is intended. The item will be too strong if it still worked the way it did after the rework they gave it recently. There was a question about if more features are coming to HUD Editor, and Kilgoon said yes, there will be, for example, a snap to grid and maybe even save, load, and share HUD layouts in the future. But again, it's a matter of priorities, and they feel like there are other more important things to work on in a UI department at the moment. They also said they might look into making a different default HUD for console, as the two platforms have very different needs from a default HUD, so that's probably the next thing we'll see in regards to HUD Editor. Someone asked about bringing back the commendation and goodwill system, and Kilgoon said maybe, but probably not exactly the same way it worked in Smite 1, as it often resulted in only commending your team if you won and never doing it if you lost, which didn't result in any actual commendations. Everyone just got them or didn't get them based on if you won or lost. There was a question about the movement overhaul, and Kilgoon said they don't really have any updates on it at the moment. It will probably be a while before we hear anything on it, as the issues that came up take a while to fix, but they're still working on it in the background. Someone asked if they could disable support status in Joust like they did in Smite 1, and they said maybe they'll look into that. There was a question of if there will be a diamond sale at any point soon, and they said no, there's not one planned at the moment, although they have said previously that they never announce sales ahead of time because it results in no one buying anything until the sale goes live, so I doubt they would even tell us if there was one planned. Shameless self-plug, use the code INTERSECT on the Smite Nexus store when you buy diamonds to support the channel at no extra cost to you. Appreciate you. Someone asked if we will get ranked Joust soon, and Kilgoon went on a monologue basically asking chat if they would like a merged experience where it's one queue that's basically unranked until a certain MMR threshold, at which point picks and bans kick in and a leaderboard is enabled for you. They're not necessarily saying this is what's happening. Kilgoon was basically just asking for feedback on it as they've talked about it internally, so if you have any feedback on this, definitely leave it in the comments as well and I can pass that on to the devs. Someone also said in chat that they should make picks and bans right from the start, even in casuals, and Kilgoon said they will never do this because there needs to be a safety net set for new players where they can play their limited god pool and not get their only 2 gods that they know how to play banned, at which point they will probably just quit. Someone asked if the speed buff will be getting an arse update like the other camps did anytime soon, and Kilgoon said yes, it will get an update at some point, but they've also mentioned that the Conquest bases need an update in previous talks, and they said that likely the next thing getting an update on the Conquest map will probably be the trees, as they feel like they're pretty bad at the moment and they don't really fit the new aesthetic of the map. They feel like this will be one of the biggest impact art changes they could make, because the trees are everywhere on the map and you're always seeing them, which I definitely agree with. There was a question on if they saw a Reddit post earlier this week on pets or followers, and they said it would be interesting, but they would have to be very careful in the way they were implemented, because they can absolutely have gameplay implications, such as you turning around a corner but your pet is still following behind you and people can see where you went, stuff like that. Someone asked if they could ban new gods for ranked for the patch, and they said they have discussed it internally and they're not sure where they fall on it. Perhaps a bans increase could solve this kind of issue, or maybe they could ban them for only the first week or something like that, because they hotfix quite quickly. There was a question of which gods they've already ported were the hardest and which ones they're not looking forward to, and they said King Arthur, of course, is the one they dread, and he's been pushed back multiple times due to hard tech work. Of the ones they've added, they said probably the Morrigan, which makes a lot of sense. Someone asked if they could add an option to view the god page in a headshot grid format like in the lobby, and they said it's not a priority, but definitely something they could consider now that more and more gods are making their way into the game and that page can get quite long. They will probably still keep the full god cards as the default view though, as it's better for new players, but having the option to use a grid would be nice. My own community polls on gods were actually mentioned, and Kilgoon basically said those kinds of polls are useful to a certain extent, but they also find that a lot of the time what the community says they want doesn't align with actual play rates in the game. And some gods that score highly on community votes are some of the least popular gods in the game, and while it's important to get some of those gods in for their unique gameplay niches and competitive importance, it's also important to get gods into play that are very popular to please the most amount of players at once. Green buff was asked about, and Kilgoon said they definitely could add it in, but there are other things they want to do with the Conquest map at the moment, and the reason they didn't do it initially is because you can pick up multiple buffs in Smite 2, and they didn't really know where that would go. It would be possible that just having the green buff in right from the start will result in the jungler taking it and being more tanky than they should be, for example. And finally, someone asked how they feel about the current implementation of hybrid scaling, and Kilgoon said they can always go back and add hybrid scaling to gods that don't have it if they feel like it serves a good purpose, but they also don't intend for every god to be hybrid by any means. Kilgoon also mentioned that at a very high level of play, the meta generally condenses down to one viable meta build to play, which might make it appear like there's less viable paths than there actually is when you watch high-end rank streamers, because only the absolute best way to play the god is what's going to be used, even though there are plenty of other viable options that would work if you weren't in the absolute top echelon of play. But that's everything discussed on today's Titan Talk. Don't forget to drop a like before you leave, and I'll catch you guys in another one later on. Have a great day, and peace out, you nerds.
Enemy missing middle, be careful left.
Sorry, I guess. Nice.
I die.
Your last tower is under attack. Enemy missing middle. Double kill. Shut down.
This Zeus is poggers, man.
Your middle